The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB TV. Hot topics, food, fun, entertainment, and serious business. Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese.
We've got babes and birds in today's show. You're going to see where we're going with that. We're going to start with art, and then we're going to talk to a guy who you guys have seen before, who is an artist when it comes to animals. And he always, and I was just telling these beautiful ladies, every time he's on the show, he swears that none of his animals are going to molest me or jump for freedom. This never comes true. So after we finish talking about all this beautiful artwork, just stay for the wild man, Ken Foose of Exotic Pets, and see if he keeps his word this time. So far, I've used the word disingenuous. It hasn't happened, but you know, I just expect these things, and they're always fun, and you guys always let me know when you see me out in public. I saw you when you dived after that lizard. I had to. The lizard dove off the set. All right, so we have these two ladies here on today's show. One who is a renowned sculptor, another one who is a renowned wine taster, wine glass painter, and is also out there in the community all the time. And these two ladies, I mean, they're just amazing. They're so artistic, they're so crafty, and they actually rent space side by side. So now they're buddies as well as artists who create in a similar space. Somebody told me, and I won't say who, that the way to find your way to them is they're down the street from Little Darlings. What does that tell you? I mean, you got the gamut going down there on the street where they are. We've got Sharon Gainsburg, who is a world-renowned sculptor. We've got Dorothy Portnoy, who is a world-renowned painter. And they're going to talk about an event that's coming up next week for you and your amazing artwork that you create. So we're going to start with you because your event is kind of timely and it's coming up really quickly. May 22nd.
That's correct.
Yes, yeah. Now,
it's Tuesday.
Sip,
View,
and paint. Even John Stiles, our owner, he was kind of taken aback about this. He thought that you were going to paint and then sip while you painted. No, you're actually painting wine glasses.
So yes, so we do have wine tasting.
Mm-hmm.
We have Bill Rocheleau. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He is with Direct Sellers, and he comes and he does the wine tasting for us while we paint the wine glasses. And then I have snacks.
Now, this is beautiful stuff, but I'll admit I was a little skeptical when you first told me about this the first time we met. I thought, now, how do you really paint the wine glasses and then sip at the same time? It's you know, how does this work?
You don't sip out of these glasses.
No,
that you paint.
but you're sipping while you're painting.
Yeah, so we start, we get together, everybody meets each other. It's always a nice, fun meet-up group.
And also, this is at the Portnoy Art Gallery.
Right. So that's why we call it Sip, View, and Paint.
Right.
We're sipping the wine during the wine tasting. We are viewing Neil's wonderful artwork, and then we're painting the wine.
And this is Neil Portnoy, who is the illustrator for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, who I had on the show and told him all this time I've been looking at his work and I've been a fan of his work. Because of his illustrations are always at the top of the article, I never read the articles. I just assumed that Neil wrote all that stuff. And it was like, wow, but his artwork is amazing. So you will be immersed in just his illustrations. And what got me was that he uses magic markers. Now, they are fine art magic markers, but still. So these paints that you're going to be providing, you provide all the supplies.
Yes, I supply all the supplies. And so people come in, they paint 2 glasses. They get to sip the wine. Bill talks about what wine it is. And then you generally have snacks, and everybody gets to know each other. It's like come and be with friends, make new friends.
Yeah, that is so cool. Yeah. What made you decide to do this?
A long time ago, when I lived back east, I've done this a couple of times, and it was fun. And what's really popular today is the canvas painting. And I said, you know, I want to do something different. And this you can use, or you can gift.
Right. Yeah. So. Yeah. And you can see your artwork, you know, in your own home.
Yeah, it's fun, and we also do teacups. And when I do the teacups, we do tea tasting. And I have Louise Caruth. She has the little candle tea company, and she comes and she talks about her teas, and we sip the tea.
Yeah. Now, how long is the event, and how much are tickets?
It is about 2 hours. It depends on how many people I have. I have anywhere from 6 to 20 people. The 20 is the maximum.
Yeah.
And it's $30 for all the supplies and 2 glasses.
That is so cool. And of course the wine tasting. So I mean, this is a pretty good deal.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So now you two, you're both from the East Coast. That's what I love about your stories too. So Sharon, tell me how you and I actually met. We were talking about 6 years ago when you were downtown at First Fridays
in the Arts District.
In the Arts District, and now you guys are neighbors side by side down from Little Darlings. But you have to come see the spaces are just incredible. Your studio, you and Neil, it's just the artwork is all around. It's just you're surrounded by it. I haven't gotten to come to your chance to come to your new studio, but I've seen your work. Tell me how you got started in stone sculpting.
I did clay sculpture, figurative work for 9 years as a hobbyist. I had no background in art.
Because you were studying to be, I saw on your background, you were a medical technician.
Yes.
How do you make the jump from that to starting to sculpt clay?
I saw a sculpture in someone's home, and I said, "Where did you buy that?" And they said, "No, I made it." This was in Philadelphia. So he said, "Well, why don't you come on a Wednesday night and just see, we work with live models." Okay. I walked in. He introduced me to the teacher. The teacher said, "Sit down." That was it. He took a big block of clay, he put it in front of me. There was a live model. She was lying on a chaise lounge, and she had kind of a robe over part of her. And he said, "See what you can do." So, and he kind of rattled off some proportions. A head is 2.5 from shoulder to shoulder, and 3 hours went by, and I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
When the 3 hours were over, I hadn't gotten to the hands and the feet, but you could definitely see it was a woman, and you could see her features.
Wow. So had you had any training in art before that?
So I as a kid, I liked crafts. I would do crafty things. So I continued with clay, with this teacher, and then I got married and moved away, and for about 8 years. And then I was living in New York, and in a garden apartment where people are very friendly, and this woman comes in to my house one day, and she sees my clay sculpture. She says, "You have to try stone." I said, "Oh no, I don't want to try stone." "Why not?" I said, "Because with clay, if I make a mistake, it's very easy to correct." She said, "You have to try stone." So for 1 year, she bugged me.
Wow.
And one summer, the second summer, she came to me, she handed me her tools. She said, "I'm going away for the summer. My instructor has a 6-week course. Go into New York and buy yourself a stone called alabaster." She told me where to go. So to shut her up, so she would stop bugging me, that's what happened.
Right.
Okay, the story gets better. I walk in to the teacher. I don't have a clue what I'm going to do. Or I show him a picture of one of my torsos I did. He looks at me and he says, "Why do you want to do that?" And already I go deflated.
Right.
He says, "You already know how to do that. Don't you want to learn something? I'm going to teach you how to work abstractly, and I'm going to teach you how to think like an artist." Okay. And 6 weeks later, I absolutely fell in love with stone the first day.
Wow.
And I'll tell you why. There's something that my students get eventually, maybe not the first or second class. You're working with the Earth's energy that is millions of years old. And there is a spiritual connection to the beginning of time. It's the best way that I can describe it. And the funny thing is, when I get a new student and I mix intermediate and advanced and beginners all together in the same class, they ask me a question, and I said, "The stone will talk to you." And I get this blank kind of look, and I know what they're thinking, she's cuckoo. And I said, "You'll see, in a few weeks, the stone will talk to you." So my more my more senior students and more advanced students will walk up and say, "She's not crazy. The stone is going to talk to you." And sure enough, after a few weeks, they come to me and say, "You're absolutely right. I was working over here, and the stone is calling me to do the same thing over here."
Wow.
So the method that I teach is not the traditional method. It's called the direct carving method. They take a stone, and they don't have to have, and most of my students have had no art background at all, and they work with the shapes in the stone, and I teach them how to create different shapes that are really right there, but they're just going to bring them out. And this way, by learning the technical aspect of the physicality and how to hold the tools, their anxiety level goes from here the first day down to here, because they're not thinking about what it's going to look like.
Right. Right.
And I warn them the first class, this is addictive. But it's a good addiction, you'll see. And sure enough, usually I've only had a few people since I'm here that have done one or two and maybe lost interest, but most of them continue on because, you know, in a million years they never thought they could do anything like this.
Yeah. Well, Dorothy, do you feel like, since you guys are like side by side now and you have both some pretty sizable studios and there's so much space down where you guys are, do you foresee a time where some of the arts district people who were displaced when they tore down the buildings might start moving over to your area?
It would be really nice.
Yes. The only thing is that we're not participating in First Friday, which for me is more of a blessing because I did it for 10 years. Because Neil, Dorothy's husband, and Dorothy and I are professional artists.
Right.
So we, in a way, we want people to come in and see our space, but we don't want to be interrupted by the looky-loos.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I had in the other space. And it never really provided me with a lot of business.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that was always surprising to me because I'm from Vegas, and so I grew up with First Friday being it was like a glorified flea market when it first started, and then it's grown over the years. But what saddened me was as it became more popular, it became more commercial.
Yes.
Whereas, you know, you could go down and still see artists, you could go down and see fine works, and now it's sort of like, because the folks they're not going to buy. And so, if really, really good stuff. And so it's like a lot of people kind of walking through your gallery, touching your stuff,
right,
and then walking out. Yeah. So how did you get started in art? And what was were you like one of those kids who, like me, was like always crafting as a child?
Yeah, I always liked to do crafty things in art, and I went to school for fine art. I wanted to be a graphic artist. Before computers, right? Computers were just
before Photoshop.
People were just learning how to use a computer,
right?
At the time, and so I went. And then I had my portfolio together. I only went to school for 2 years. And my father had a friend who knew somebody who had a agency in New York City. So I got to New York City, got on the bus, went to his studio, and he's looking at my little stuff that wasn't very good, And but it was an experience to do that. And I worked in a print shop for a couple of years. I was layout and paste up. And I did a little bit of design work for them. We did, magazines and posters and a whole bunch of different stuff.
Sure.
And then I ended up having a family. So that got me away. And then to stay in it, I did typesetting for the company. I married. My first husband worked for the print shop. And so when I was on maternity leave, I did the typesetting. It was a typewriter.
Yes, that's right.
And we typed on.
What were those?
We typed on clay paper.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I was able to do it at home, and then I went back to the shop and did a little paste up, and just from there, I never really did the art again. I did when my kids were little. I did after-school programs at the school. I did crafts with the young kids. The after-school program, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. So. And so now this new venue for you. So what unites you two? Like, what do you guys because you're side by side? What do you talk about when you hang out?
Well, usually for me, she's helping me with the technology. she's helping me now.
She's queen of social media. She's got
Yes.
that whole thing
She's got down pat.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So when my book is going to be coming out in the next 2 weeks, and Dorothy helped me get it on Facebook. The ad that I created for Facebook, and then the little glitches here and there, she helps me with that, and now she's going to help me promote it, show me how to promote it once the book is actually out.
And let's talk about the book. That's down there by a sculpture that you brought in, which, I am like an artist addict, because I love it how you guys take something that just, like, it doesn't look like anything, and then next thing you know, it's this beautiful piece. Like, I would never have thought. I want to come, but hyacinth?
No,
Are those?
No, there's
lavender.
Lavender, okay.
Yeah.
How do you even get started with that? But then when you guys are done, it's like, oh my gosh, this is such a great piece. Your work is amazing. It's
Thank you.
The thing that I read today, of 400 pieces that you've created, 90% have sold?
Yes.
Wow. And as you're going to be watching and seeing John put up some of her pieces, they're just stunning. Not only are they all over the world, but here in Las Vegas, you can see a lot of your pieces, because you do corporate and private collections.
Yes, but mostly in Las Vegas, I've done private collections. But when I was living back east, I did corporate collections.
Right. And let's talk about your book, because we were talking about that beforehand, and then Dorothy can chime in. The title of your book is really something. Yeah. How did that come about?
My book, I didn't have a title, and I was trying to come up with different cutesy names. Well, it turns out that my son is an astrologer, and I was at a crossroads in my life around the late 90s, and he did a reading for me, and his readings are usually on a deeper level than most astrologers. It's what your soul has come into this lifetime to accomplish. Wow. And he said to me that I was a world bridger, and I said, what is that? He said, you're here to help people bridge their consciousness with their unconscious, and you do it through stone carving. And I also had been teaching this workshop called The Artist Way that has nothing to do with sculpture.
That's the Julia Cameron
book, and I was teaching that for quite a few years before I moved to Las Vegas. And so he said, you're also doing it through The Artist Way. So I tucked that title back of my head, and was thinking cutesy titles, and then all of a sudden...
Oh, you have to tell me one of those cutesy titles was such a Las Vegas title. I loved it.
An Uncommon Chiseler. And then the second one was A Chiseled Life. But the person who was helping me with the book said they'll think it's a bodybuilding book. So, your book is too serious. But what I want to say about the book, and it was just wonderful for me to be able to write it, because I do have a photographic memory. So I've had to play this 8mm. Do you know what 8mm? Yeah. 8mm film, which was, back of all these different episodes in my life. But the interesting part, there's a thread that runs through the book about all the synchronicity that has happened to me, where generally I would have said no to something, like walking up to a stranger and asking them a question when I was in my 30s and 40s. And then it turns out that stranger had advice for me about my work. Wow. And this just went on, and the thread just keeps moving along. And I just have to tell one quick story. I was commissioned in the late 80s by an organization, a national organization, to create an award for people who are in the medical field who have some notoriety. not only the medical field, but also in philanthropic. And so when the person approached me, they said, do you know what DNA is? I'm an artist. I should know what DNA is. And I said, yes. And she said, well, we want you to do a sculpture that looks like DNA, but it's not a literal interpretation. Then she says to me, how do you know what DNA is? I said, I was a medical technician before I was.
I had a life, lady, before.
Yeah, I had a different life. Well, the irony of this whole story is that a week before the presentation of the award, which I was intending to go to, they sent me the brochure, and it had my sculpture on the front, and they called it the Maxwell Finlan Award. Well, Maxwell Finlan was the doctor who had discovered a way of testing people's infections with a very rapid method that only took 24 hours. And many people were saved because prior to this, in the 30s, they would give somebody an antibiotic, and if it didn't work, they'd try another antibiotic. And if that didn't work, they'd try another one, and then by then the person would be dead because nothing was working.
Right.
But he developed this technique, and that was the technique that I used when I worked in the microbiology.
Wow.
Yes.
Now, and the story of how you guys got together, I'm going to let you tell the story, Dorothy, because that, you talk about synchronicity.
Yeah.
You know, you guys just moved to town, but no, it
They
starts
didn't even
before.
move.
Before
They
you
didn't
moved to town, right.
So we put our house on the market, and it took us 2 years to sell
And this
the
was
house.
back in?
We were in Massachusetts. So Neil just got on the computer and kept on, researching Las Vegas. And he found this gentleman who used markers for his art.
Mm-hmm.
And so he continued to talk to him. And then his name is Garth. And he said, you need to speak to Sharon Gainsburg. Sharon's the greatest networker. So Neil continued to email Sharon. They were, email buddies, right?
Yeah.
And she goes, well, contact me when you move in. So we called and said we sold the house. She says, great, there's a couple of vacant spaces here in the plaza. She goes, so why don't you come over? I'll set you up with the real estate person.
So you guys could get your whole
Yeah, and I told Neil, as
going.
we're pulling in there and we're waiting, I'm saying, Neil, we can't pick the first place. I mean, we just can't.
Right.
But we walked in, the place was a mess, but it just had the right bone structure. It just kind of, the layout and everything. And the price was great, so we said, we're going to do it. So we go next door and we tell Sharon, we're like, we took it. She's like, that's great. She had a class. So that was the first time I met her students. And we're like, now we need a place to stay. So we didn't get the price on the house that we thought. So we're thinking, we're going to get a little tiny apartment. And one of her students says, I might be able to help you find a place. I'm a realtor. We say, well, we're probably looking for a 2-bedroom apartment,
Yeah.
She goes, you'll be surprised.
Yeah.
So that afternoon we get a call from her, and she says, I want to take you somewhere. I think you're going to really love it. And it's a house. And we're like, really? So as she was leaving class, she was talking to one of the other students, and he just decided he was fixing up his house, and he just put the sign out literally that day to rent his place. So we got there to the house, and we saw this gentleman standing there. We were like, why does he look so familiar? And then he goes, I met you yesterday. And we're like, oh.
At Sharon's place,
Yeah. And so Ronnie's like the sweetest guy. He's like family now. And even after we sold our house, we still are very good friends with him. And so it's, and that's how our life has been for the 2 years. It's just been amazing.
Right. Yeah.
And we just fell in love with Las Vegas, and we're so fortunate to have Sharon. And I did Sharon's Artist Way class. She talked me into it, and that was a big help. When I first got here, it was all about Neil, and we really had to do that because that's what we were here for. And I kind of got lost in the shuffle.
Sure.
So it took me a little while.
She found herself.
Yeah, it took me
Well,
a
it's
while.
funny too because when she came in with Neil and when she mentioned this, because I've seen this before, I've just never attended it. And I said, well, you need to be on my show. Oh, no, I can't be on your show. It's like, okay, you guys know, I admit it. I stalk my guests.
Yeah.
I always love it when they say, "Oh, I can't be on your show." Like Kim would never say that, sitting over there with the birds. But oh, I can't. Those are the best guests because they,
Yeah.
it's like they always just come out of the woodwork, and it's just so much fun. And your energy, just sitting here with both of you, it's amazing. So, what are you doing to promote the book that we can maybe kind of go get it?
Okay, so it's on Facebook, thanks to Dorothy.
Yep.
On June the 7th, my very dear friend, who's an interior designer, is having a dual book signing with myself and another gal whose name is Quinn, who you might want to interview. She's a poet. And we're going to do a book signing there. But because I have a lot of very loyal students, past and present, I have already pre-sold about 50 copies.
Wow.
Just from saying, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because the book is really, it's really for artists. It doesn't make a difference, whatever their area of creativity, dancing, singing, poetry, painting, sculpture. The life of an artist is like a roller coaster. Dorothy can contest to this.
Sure.
And you need to learn how to navigate. And that's what the book is about, how I was able to navigate for 50 years to be a self-supporting artist in a not the most common area. Sculpture has always been the orphan of the art world. It's only come into its own in the last 20 years. Believe it or
Really?
not. Yeah.
Why?
Because people want to decorate their walls, and once they finish doing that,
They're done.
they're done. They don't have any more money. And also, it's something that hasn't, looking at art and appreciating art has not been, people have not been educated about it, especially here in Las Vegas. Back east, it's quite different because you're surrounded by museums and galleries. So here, one of my goals has been to, if somebody walks into my space and they look at something abstract and I can see that they really don't understand it, I ask them this question: how do you feel when you look at that?
Right.
And for some people, it's very hard for them to get in touch with their feelings, but they'll say happy, angry, and they'll give me an emotion, and I say, that's how you look at a piece of art. Not that you see a cat and the cat looks like your cat. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I love about your event too, is because it's almost user-friendly. Like at a certain point, I grew up with all that stuff, you know, like the paper dolls and the painting, and my mother would always, and she always had the funniest expression on her face because she was a singer, but she couldn't get her head around this girl who wanted to just craft and make stuff, and I loved to find something and just like rehab something. I was doing like rehab and renovating like as a kid because I didn't want new. I wanted something that had some, I don't know, some life to it. Like somebody had touched it before me. That's what I really, really
so
loved.
you felt that energy.
Yes, and loved stones. I had more stones in my, I was a stone girl. And anytime she'd see me bend down, she was like, stop it, drop it. No. I don't know. I just have to have it. So I'd wait till her back was turned. You know.
Put it in
So
your
I had
pocket.
right. And I had like this whole collection of stones, different types of stones. I just loved stones. So I had that going, and then I had the whole paint. But I never really got into painting. And then one day I decided I want to start doing watercolor. I got thrown out of 2 classes because, you know, you have to learn the technique first. But I realized I just wanted to color. I didn't necessarily want to, I just wanted to see the saturated color on the paper. I didn't want to, I didn't need to paint a flower or something.
It didn't have to look like something. Yeah.
No, it's abstract.
That's right.
And even, and these too, it's not so rigid.
What's fun about my classes, so this is going to be the new design.
Okay.
This is what I came up with. Now I go and I give them a paper with a picture on it so they can follow it, or I have a stencil, and I help them. And I help them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 1 or 2 people will do that.
Yeah.
everyone says they might like the leaves, and they'll start doing leaves, and the next thing it morphs into something else, and other people do abstract. And I just love all the creation that everybody loves it. I had a couples night for Valentine's Day.
Ooh.
And so I did only one glass each, because I thought, there's 20 people, a lot of people, and how many of the men are really going to paint, or, I was so surprised.
Yeah.
They got into it. And then they were just like, okay, one step at a time. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Next thing you know, there's 5, 6 hearts all around. And everybody's I'm like, I don't need to say anything.
That's right.
I just would walk around saying, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, from both of you, I get the sense that part of the magic is giving people permission to explore themselves without any rules. That's what got me in trouble in the classes, but I didn't realize that's what I wanted. I thought, well, somebody will teach me. No, I wanted to do what I'd always done, which was give myself permission, and it didn't have to look any kind of way. It just had to make me happy.
Yes.
That's right.
It was the doing of it.
Yeah.
It's really good for the mind and the brain when you're working on something. And I used to do this also when I used to sew. I would have a crazy day. The kids are finally in bed, and I'd start a project. And even if I had to rip the seam out because I sewed it inside out or whatever, all I had to do was concentrate on that. I couldn't think of anything else in my life.
Right. Well, that's what happens.
That's what happens with the stone, and that's what happens when I'm painting.
When you're creating,
your mind just goes there. You can't wander, and all of a sudden you're like,
the time
6 hours went by.
Right.
And it's good for your soul.
The other thing that I do is I teach. It's a 4-week class. It's 2 hours once a week. It's called intuitive painting.
Ooh.
I have put together music that evokes a certain emotion. For me, happiness. Another week we do anger. Another week we do passion. Another week we do peace and serenity. And they paint on canvas. I supply all these supplies, and we put the music on, and I tell them they can dance. If they want to put the canvas on the floor and throw paint at it, they can do that. Whatever they're
Jackson
feeling.
Pollock moment.
Yeah, Jackson, yeah.
Which is great.
Whatever they're feeling from the music. And the music might have words, but they're in a different language. Because I don't want the words to inspire. I want them to feel the music and just paint. And it's a lot of fun. You never...
No, I haven't done it yet.
Yeah. Next time I have one of those classes, I'll let you know. Yeah.
This happens when you're next door neighbors. It's like, come to my class, or come to my class. We can hang out,
That's
right?
great. And we share.
Yeah.
We help each other out. If I'm having an event, Sharon says, you want to borrow this? You want to borrow that? I borrow her chairs. So now her chairs sit in my gallery because I have more space. They don't get full of dust.
Well,
Yes.
I'm always intrigued by what goes into, because especially for you helping her promote the book, so often people really don't know how to get the word out. That's number one. And number two, I was under the impression, and don't ask me how this got started, that people weren't necessarily buying books anymore. But that is not the case. Book sales are through the roof. And you would think that since everybody's on their tablets or their computers, do you know what I find for me personally? The screen is too limited.
Yes.
I need to be able to read ahead. My eyes and my emotions want to go in different directions.
Right.
If all I have is that one
little
area,
Yeah.
I find that very tiring. It just.
I like the feel of the page.
Me too.
I like to be able to turn the page.
Me too.
Maybe it's just an old pattern, put a bookmarker or rip a piece of paper and, okay, this is where I left off. But it's very, to me, it's very therapeutic.
Yeah. And it's a way of, for me, it slows me down. I was just such a voracious reader as a child. I could just go through hundreds of pages in one sitting. Then, as I started using computers for work, I found my attention span was going away.
Yeah.
And that frightened me, because
Yeah.
all of a sudden I had no patience. I couldn't sit down. I couldn't relax. I said, wait a minute, what's wrong with this picture? Technology was supposed to make our lives richer and bring us more. I love it as a tool.
Yes.
I can get on and just find
Yeah.
stuff, but I'm the kid who went to the library and would just randomly pick, and I still do that.
Yeah.
I'm on a first name basis with pretty much every library here in town. They go, oh, Rikki must be having a bad day. Oh, I'm just going to be sitting between the stacks. I mean, a full-grown woman sitting between the stacks. I find that very therapeutic. It's
Yes,
fantastic.
it is.
But now that I've cut back on my computer use, I'm finding the joy of the printed page
Yes,
again.
yes.
There's just nothing like it. Yeah. So glad that you're getting your book,
Thank you.
started and getting it out here. You've got your event coming up in a couple of weeks. Next week, I predict that we're going to see down the street from Little Darlings. There's a whole other. That's how you can find it. That's how Neil told me how to find it. The birds are going, hey, we're up next. Come on now, move it along, ladies. Thank you both for being on
Rikki.
the
Thank you
show.
so much for having
Yes,
us.
It was
and
a
you talk
pleasure.
about synchronicity. When I went to the gallery, they're like, oh, Sharon Gainsburg is right. It's like, what are the odds? This is
right.
fantastic.
Right. Yes.
So you have both got to be on the show. So
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
you.
much. And we'll have you back on when your
Okay.
book takes off, and we'll have you on for your next event, even though you say no. Now, wasn't this easy?
It was easy.
Yes.
So since Neil was on, I think before the beginning of the year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And my motto this year was to not say no. So
Yes.
you ask and I'm doing.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going, in fact, when I leave here after the show, I'm going right to the library because I put on hold Shonda Rhimes' book. She's the one who wrote, who's writing Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder.
Murder, yeah.
She wrote a couple of years ago. I thought it was a new book, but it's actually been out since 2015. The Year of Yes.
Oh,
And I realized I had started doing that. I'd start,
Yes.
oh, I'm too tired. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, I can't do that.
Yeah,
And I was
right.
just missing out on all this life around me. This is Las Vegas. I mean, really,
Yes.
you can go anywhere, see anything, and experience anything. But I had become like a lot of my friends who wouldn't leave Summerlin, wouldn't leave Anthem in their little area,
Yeah.
and missing out on this huge community.
I call it not leaving your zip code.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I started going downtown, and in fact, that's how I found you, my brothers, they ridiculed me. They're like, well, why are you going downtown? It's like,
Right.
well, you guys people come from all around the world, and we can drive back home. We can drive
Right.
anywhere,
That's
and we
great.
can go
Yeah,
back home.
yeah.
So I know that you guys are already
Yeah.
off to great success. It's a great space. You got to go over there. It's really easy to find, and it's just nice to be around creative people. It just really is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
really.
you.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
And you guys stick around. I know you heard some squawking over there because the birds are getting just a little, anxious. So like, hello, ow. Well, they're not saying it like that. Ken Foose of Exotic Pets is going to be on this time, swearing once again that I'm not going to be molested and I'm not going to try to escape. Let's see if that holds true. We'll be right back.
Crazy Terry here with your car care tip of the day. So it's not a bad idea every now and then to check your battery. If you don't know how to do it, have somebody check it for you. Just a visual inspection can tell you a lot about your battery. So as we can see here, this battery's got a hold down. It's nice and tight. The cables are on. They don't look bad. We've got a cover. We don't see any corrosion. Everything's kind of tight, looking good. A little bit of dirt, that's normal, but nothing's leaking, no real cause for alarm here. So that's a good sign. Doesn't mean it's good, but at least visually we know that it's intact. Okay, so we're looking at a battery here that shows signs of corrosion. We want to test that battery to make sure it's good. Usually when they're getting like this, there's going to be a problem leaking some acid at the top. We ran the test and we find out it has 396 cold cranking amps, but the battery requires 650. So it's just not enough. The battery is going to go soon. Better to know now than later. Okay, so the benefits of checking the cable is because this cable's rotted out. What we'll find is this is the problem, not the battery. So it'll save you from buying a battery, still having the no start, only to find out that it's a cable. This type of corrosion is common in diesels. Okay, so we're getting ready to jump the car, but we have to have some battery cables. And we have to check those too before we hook them up to the battery. So here we have our standard set of battery cables. We just look them over, see if the ends are frayed, if everything's connected all right. Everything looks good here. Wouldn't hurt to check the rest of the cable just to make sure the dog didn't get it and chew it up. We have red and black. Red's positive, black's negative. You always want to hook the positive up first and then the negative. And I'll show you how that's done right now. Keep these off to the side so they're not touching each other. Hook up your positive. You can find that right here by the plus sign, the negative sign. Plus is positive, red. Make sure that's securely hooked up. Keeping these away from each other, hook up your negative cable. Just got to fight it on there, figure out a way to get it. Wiggle it a little bit so it ensures a good connection. Now you're transferring voltage. If I hit these two together, we're going to spark. Kind of want to avoid that. Won't kill you, Kind of fun. A lot of people think if they can turn the headlights on, the battery's fine. That's not always the case. It takes very little amperage to turn a light on, but it takes a lot of amperage to start the starter. I recommend checking the charging system every oil change. At Sun Valley Automotive, there's never a charge for that. This is Crazy Terry with your car care tip of the day.
Welcome back to Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese. Okay, one of my favorite wild men's back in the studio again. In the break, one of the birds already tried to escape for freedom. So we've already established that, you know, they're on the run here. This is a beautiful, beautiful animal. Normally he brings snakes and reptiles and lizards because that's really what I'm into. But I'm trying to expand my horizons here, like trying to, you know, be different. Try something new.
That's what we're trying to do.
Exactly. So what do you got there?
Well, we've got several birds. This is a gaw or a rose-breasted cockatoo. Her name is Pebbles, and she'll do anything she can to make me hold her.
Really?
She's actually the store pet.
Oh, wow. Does she just walk around free?
She's got her own perch.
Okay.
And she talks a little bit, and not much. She basically says, not I am Groot, but it says I love you, in that order. Right. Only. She'll say a few other words, but not much. She's full grown. They come from Australia. And she's just a very friendly little girl. And they talk a little bit, and but mostly they're smaller cockatoos. They don't get...
Now, how old is she and how long will she live? Because that's the thing people don't realize. Birds live for a really long time.
She'll live, she's about 6 years old now. She'll live for about another 60, 70 years.
Wow.
You know, it's a long-term commitment.
What do people do? Whenever I hear that, do people like leave their birds in a will to someone? How do they pass the birds on?
Unfortunately, a lot of people don't prepare for it.
Really?
And, well, it's like... You know,
but when they come to the store, I'm sure you tell them, look, this bird's going to be around for a while.
Oh, yeah. Well,
right.
Well, even something like this...
What do we got there?
This... Yeah, I know you don't know me. This is a sweetheart. This is a sun conure.
Oh, wow.
And
how pretty.
It's almost full grown, not quite. It was just weaned, a hand-fed baby. These come from northern South America. Okay. They're not very good talkers, but they will talk occasionally. But the neat thing about this is, oh my, yes.
Ah, sorry.
That's fine.
Sorry, sweetheart.
He'll crawl right. He's going to go right for your hair.
Really?
Yes.
I'm having a Megan tell us a moment. Here, ow. Here you go. Here, the finger. Get the finger.
There you go. No,
there you go.
It'll crawl. I don't know what sex this is, but it'll crawl right up on your shoulder and hide in your hair.
Really? Why is that?
Well, that's the way the person that fed it did it. It would grow. I've got one of these at home, and it literally sits on its back with its legs in the air, and you pet its belly, and it snuggles.
Well, see, I'm glad you say that, because I was one, until I met you, I was one of those people who said, why would anybody want a bird as a pet? I just didn't get my head around birds as pets. But, you know, they've got personalities and all kinds of stuff.
They're a lot smarter than what I'm used to working with. I mean, even the wallaby is kind of dumb. Reptiles, are smart in a reptile way, but this goes to a whole new level. This is an animal that will... Snakes really won't interact with you. And even bearded dragons, all they do is sit there and do nothing. But this is an animal that has a lot of personality and requires human interaction. They require love.
Wow.
And this is an animal that isn't going to be content to be sitting in a cage. A python or a boa or a bearded dragon or a monitor, quite happy to sit in that cage under their heat lamp. And this isn't an animal that you can really do that with. You've got to take them out and you've got to love them. And this guy here sits, not this particular one, but his brother, sits on the couch, eats popcorn, watches movies.
Are you serious?
And the neat thing about this is exactly like a twin of the one that I've got at home. And this will literally hide in your hair, sit on. The one at home isn't clipped, so it flies across the room and lands on my head.
Well, I'm trying to hold him in front of me because I just realized he's green and he's probably disappeared on the green screen. Is he okay? Yeah. Oh, he is adorable.
But the neat thing about birds is they have a lot more personality than your run-of-the-mill reptile. They're just glorified reptiles after all. But
How so?
Well, it's they've got scales. They've got modified scales, which are their feathers.
Right.
And you remember dinosaurs probably evolved into birds. And so these are just fancy reptiles.
Wow.
They're warm-blooded, of course. They're endotherms and not ectotherms, but they still lay eggs and the whole bit. But they're neat. I'm not a real big bird person, but they're growing on me. Like I said, at Exotic Pets, we do all the exotic mammals and blah blah blah. And
Oops. Oh!
it's okay, can't fly. It's got no lift. There you go. You want to stand over there, or you want to go over here? I'll let you do whatever you want. But
I live for these moments. You know this.
they're clipped, so they can't fly. We literally. Now this is, and I'm not sure about this bird, but we'll find out. And this one may attack us.
Okay.
This is called a green-cheeked conure. It's very closely related to the.
Slightly smaller version.
A little bit smaller. They'll both get about 13 inches long. This is once again a hand-fed baby. Hand-fed babies go through they're helpless, of course. They have no feathers when we get them, and we hand feed them all. And then when they get into like their teenage time, this is when they start saying, "Well, let me bite you. I want to show you who's boss."
What are the teenage years?
Well, these are only 3 or 4 months old,
Right.
so they it's like dog years. They grow pretty fast.
Right.
And of course Pebbles, yeah. Pebbles doesn't know what to think of these birds. She's all puffed up like, this is my table. But we rarely have them all out together like this. But once again, this is an animal that comes from northern South America. They're fairly easy to come by. The trick with these birds is what I found out is it's not like, I watch these things hatch, and I watch the every 2 to 4 hour feedings, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and as they grow, of course, it's kind of like a bottle feeding a wallaby or something, but it's much more intense. And my girlfriend, who is a bird expert, which is one reason why I could expand into this. She was watching as one of my snakes is laying eggs, and we've got eggs in an incubator, and she says, "So what happens now?" I went, "Well, I put them in this incubator, and I wait for 2 months, and they hatch." And she said, "That's it?" Oh, yeah. Birds are a lot more work. And I went, "Yeah, which is why I don't do birds."
But now you are expanded. And also, let's make sure you know where Exotic Pets is, because they've moved from their one location, which used to be a little bit closer.
Yeah, we're at 2410 North Decatur. We actually are in Suite 150 instead of Suite 160. We only moved 40 feet.
Yeah, you didn't move that far.
But 10 years ago, of course, we moved a half a mile. But we just keep running out of room. So we're at the Rancho Air Park, right on North Decatur, and we've got a whole room. You've seen the room now, and it is. Wait till you see it now. It's completely full of bird cages and mammal cages. We have, for example, an albino wallaby coming in about a week.
Are you serious?
Yeah, should be pretty fun.
Right.
And we had a porcupine that came and went, and
this wasn't the porcupine who broke through the wall.
no, that was the old story. Yeah, he chewed through the wall. Yeah, I had a porcupine under my desk. But they're the animals are coming and going. Now that spring is here, they're becoming. Our exotic mammals are becoming a lot more common.
Yeah.
We just had to wait for the season to come, just like birds. The bird season was just on us. Like I said, the key thing with these birds, though, is you want to get them hand tame and hand fed. We have hand fed lovebirds. You can actually go in and put your hand in a cage, and it will hop on you.
Oh, that's sweet.
Now, to me, lovebirds were the most vicious, noisy, obnoxious animals in the world.
Right.
But let's see what they did. They've never met each other before. The difference between they're trying to feed each other. They were trying to feed each other.
That's so great.
The difference between a hand-fed bird and the parent-raised birds, you can't import birds in the United States anymore. So it's either parent-raised or hand-fed. and the difference is amazing, because you so much work. I can't even tell you the amount of work that goes into pulling these animals and hand feeding them and making sure they're warm. And you can't sell, if you've got 2 baby birds, you can't sell one, because they got to stay together to keep each other warm and all this. And I'm like, well, there's baby cockatiels. I want to sell 2. Well, there's only 3. You can't sell them.
Well, what made you decide to start branching out into birds? I mean, you already have the monopoly on snakes and reptiles and everything else in the mammals.
It was. I've gone as far as I can. I mean,
Right.
I've got. I've sold $20,000 reptiles, and we've got the big Galapagos tortoises and all that stuff. And there's only so far you can go. I've saturated, not saturated the market, but
You've topped out.
I'm in, and I'm like, where else is there to go? And I thought, well, it's either fish or birds.
Right.
And I don't know anything about fish except tartar sauce. and so I don't.
He's kidding, folks.
Oh, no, I'm really not. I like to eat fish. We had sushi last night.
Right.
And so I don't know anything about fish. Plus, lift.
2 escapes to freedom.
Lift.
2 escapes.
It's just lift. It's all this one's fault. But so fish is a very expensive proposition.
Yeah.
We're talking $100,000 just to set up the fish and all the tanks and the water and the cleaning.
Yeah.
And so I decided to go with birds, and just by coincidence, I met this very lovely woman who is an expert on birds. Her grandmother owned a bird wholesale place here in town.
Wow.
So she was raised here in Las Vegas,
Yeah.
and she was, we were talking about birds one night on a date, and she said, I hand fed like 800 birds a day. I'm like, what?
Wow.
I said, come to my store. Let me show you something. And so I showed her the store, and we got to talking and decided we hit it off. And so it's nice. I can't. It's not that I don't like birds.
Right.
They're fine. They're a little noisy. And I went from this very quiet building. All you could hear is like waterfalls going.
And now you got
it's just the parakeets alone. You got 20, 30 parakeets, and it sounds like a mob. It's just screaming and yelling. Something you like. I didn't bring them.
What?
I've got lesser hornbills at the store.
Really?
In the store. They got beaks about this long.
Oh my gosh.
And they eat mice and fruit. But I didn't want to bring one because it would attack us. I would have had to have clipped its wings, and they got a big flight cage in the store.
If you guys are missing out, you have got to go to Exotic Pets. See, now we can say he has everything except fish. But just to be able to surround yourself with a wildlife that we don't have access to anymore here in Vegas, because all of the zoos or wannabe zoos have shut down. So
Unfortunately.
it's kind of unfortunately. So it's just it's just a neat store. Go down there and see, and I guarantee that you will fall in love, because I'm this close to getting a snake. I mean, this close. I just kind of go there and go, do you want to be my friend? Do you want to come home with me?
We'll get one for you sooner or later.
Well, thank you for being on the show. It's
You're welcome,
always a
darling.
pleasure, and always, like I said, 2 escapes, just 2 this time. And they didn't fall down. It's just this one is sitting up on John's shoulder right now.
The director's got the bird.
The director's got the
And
bird.
it loves him.
We've got your number here on Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese. So glad you joined us here for another edition. We'll see you next time. Make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff, and like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. See you next time.
Thanks.